Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going to be tackling your sources on personal development, relationships, and success.
Yeah.
You've given us a really interesting mix here. Excerpts from a self-help book, psychological studies, even a peek into the world of business and finance.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating blend of material. Clear you're interested in not just understanding yourself, but also these broader forces at play in your life, especially in relationships.
Absolutely. And speaking of relationships, the book you chose is particularly intriguing. It seems to offer a roadmap, especially for men.
Yeah, and one thing that really stands out to me is this emphasis on personal identity, like having a strong sense of self.
Okay, so you're saying that knowing who you are is kind of like a superpower when it comes to facing challenges and just, maintaining your mental well-being.
It's more like having a solid internal compass, It's about that unshakable core that keeps you grounded when things get tough. And one of the studies you sent actually found that those with a strong sense of self, they cope better with stress and bounce back quicker from setbacks.
Makes sense. Like when you know who you are, those external pressures don't hit quite as hard.
Exactly. And the book, it seems to suggest that this is particularly important for men in today's world.
Okay, so let's dig into that a bit more. What do you mean by that?
Well, it talks about having the confidence to pursue your goals, to assert your needs, to stand up for what you believe in.
Even when it's not the popular thing to do.
Exactly.
It's interesting. You also included some research on body language. Why do you think that's relevant to our deep dive today?
Because nonverbal communication plays such a huge role in how we interact with the world, especially in relationships. Mastering body language, it can really boost your confidence and make you more persuasive.
So it's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it or how you don't say it.
Precisely. Like there's this study showing how positive body language can actually impact job interview success.
I've personally seen the transformative power of body language. After I studied it myself, I definitely noticed a shift in how people responded to me.
That's awesome.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The book really dives into this idea of mindset and affirmation. It really pushes for adopting a growth mindset and focusing on your strengths.
Yeah, the idea that your mindset really shapes your reality.
Okay, so walk me through that. How does that work?
Well, by visualizing your goals and using positive affirmations, you're essentially programming your subconscious mind for success.
Training your brain to believe in your ability to achieve what you set out to do.
Exactly.
It's fascinating how much power our minds have. One of the most common themes in your sources was this whole idea of relationship. Is a lot about attraction, compatibility, even navigating those hormonal cycles.
Right, and one study you sent, it highlights how shared biological and psychological needs, that they are a major contributor to compatibility in any relationship. Think about it. Haven't you ever connected with someone instantly feeling like you're totally on the same wavelength?
All the time. It's like you just click with certain people and the conversation, it just flows effortlessly.
Exactly, and that's what this research is pointing to. We're drawn to people who fulfill certain needs, both the ones we're aware of and the ones that are kind of below the surface.
Well, that's interesting. Now, the book also talks about the importance of communication and not just like small talk, but communicating effectively. It breaks down different styles like assertive, aggressive, and passive, and how they impact our relationships.
There's actually this great anecdote about these two guys, John and Bob. They built a multinational conglomerate through effective communication, just showing how important it is.
Wait, John and Bob, they built a multinational what? Tell me more about that. That sounds fascinating.
It's an inspiring story. They had this simple idea, and through their ability to clearly articulate their vision and negotiate effectively, they turned it into this global enterprise.
So they weren't just good at their business, they were good at communicating about their business.
That's exactly what this book is emphasizing. It's not enough to just have the skills or the idea. You've got to be able to communicate them effectively to others.
Now, the book also doesn't shy away from conflict resolution, suggesting that understanding those personality differences, attachment styles, that's the key to navigating disagreements more effectively.
Absolutely. Think about it. Have you ever been in a conflict where it just felt like you were speaking completely different languages?
Oh, totally. It's like trying to explain the offside rule to someone who's never watched soccer. It's just frustrating for everyone involved.
And that's because we often approach conflicts through our own lens without understanding where the other person is coming from. And this book, it's all about giving you the tools to bridge those gaps and find solutions that work for everyone involved.
Another theme that kept popping up was the role of testosterone, specifically in men's behavior and success.
Oh, yeah. And the book looks at it from this balanced perspective.
So what do you mean by balance?
Well, high testosterone can be a good thing, but too much can lead to issues. So the book really focuses on optimizing it naturally through things like diet, exercise, and managing stress.
So it's not just about pumping iron and eating steaks, but it's about having this holistic approach to well-being.
Right. It's about finding what works for you and creating a lifestyle that supports optimal hormone levels for you. And speaking of lifestyle, let's talk about financial independence. Your sources are clear that this is important for everyone, men and women.
Yeah, and the book offers some solid advice on living within your means, saving, and investing wisely. I was struck by the anecdote about the author's personal experience saving 10% of his income.
It's a good reminder that you don't have to be a Wall Street tycoon to build wealth. It's accessible to anyone who's willing to be disciplined and make smart choices.
You know, speaking of smart choices, the book also delves into specialization as a way to boost your career. It argues that focusing on a specific niche can help you become an expert and command higher rates.
Yeah, there's this great example of a lawyer who specialized in intellectual property law. By focusing on this niche, he built a reputation as the go-to expert in that area and earned significantly more than his general practitioner colleagues.
So it's about becoming that go-to person, the one that everybody wants, because you have that unique, in-demand expertise.
Exactly, and that's where networking and personal branding come in. You know, your sources really emphasize how crucial these are in today's world. There's a story about Joe, a software engineer, who found funding for his startup purely through networking.
Wow, that's impressive. It really highlights how building relationships and expanding your professional circle can really open doors.
It's like planting seeds. You never know which connection will blossom into an amazing opportunity.
I like that analogy. It's like networking is about sowing those seeds, and personal branding is about crafting the story you want to tell the world about who you are and what you offer.
Exactly.
You know, before we move on, I have to ask about this Dunning-Kruger effect. It comes up a few times in the book. What's the takeaway for our listeners?
The Dunning-Kruger effect is this cognitive bias where people overestimate their own abilities, especially in areas where they lack competence.
Oh yeah, we've all been there. It's that a little knowledge is a dangerous thing idea, right? You think you're a master chef until your souffle completely collapses.
Exactly. The book has some funny stories about people falling for this, like Alex, who thought he was a coding whiz until a tough project exposed his flaws, and Sarah, who thought she was a dating pro until her friends pointed out that her overconfidence was scaring people away.
So it's a reminder that we all have blind spots, and being open to feedback can help us avoid getting stuck in a cycle of thinking we're better than we are.
Humility is key here. Being willing to admit that you don't know everything and actively seeking feedback can really help you pinpoint those weaknesses and take steps to improve.
Okay, that actually ties in nicely with the next concept, lifelong learning. You know, the world's constantly changing, and to stay ahead, we need to be always learning and adapting.
It's about cultivating a curious mind, being a student of life, always open to new ideas.
Always learning. Speaking of learning, your sources also dive into habit creation and the science behind it, you know, highlighting the role of neuroplasticity.
Yeah, so our brains are like Play-Doh, constantly able to be molded and reshaped, right?
Exactly. And the research shows that by consistently practicing new behaviors, we can literally rewire our brains and create those positive routines. The book even offers some practical tips, emphasizing starting small and gradually increasing the intensity.
That 1% better every day philosophy.
So I don't need to become a marathon runner overnight. I can just start by jogging around the block.
That's it. Small, consistent actions over time. That's how you create significant change.
All right, so let's address the elephant in the room here. Your sources include quite a bit about the red pill perspective and how it applies to modern masculinity.
You know, this perspective, it challenges a lot of mainstream narratives about gender, power, and relationships. And while the book acknowledges that some aspects can be taken too far, it encourages men to explore these ideas with an open mind.
It's about questioning societal norms that might be holding men back and embracing a more traditional, assertive understanding of masculinity.
Exactly. Finding that balance between strength and compassion.
One thing that really stood out to me was the emphasis on virtues like loyalty, honor, and commitment. The book argues these are essential for strong relationships and personal growth.
And it backs it up with personal story. You know, there's one about choosing honor over convenience that really shows how living by these virtues leads to greater fulfillment.
So it's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly.
Now, it's not all serious though, right? The book talks about humor too.
Oh, absolutely. It highlights how humor can be a powerful coping mechanism for life's challenges, especially today.
So finding that balance between seriousness and lightheartedness, because life is definitely a journey with both ups and downs.
And sometimes laughter really is the best medicine.
The book also touches on the importance of faith and charity. How do those fit into the overall message?
Well, the author shares a really touching story about Paul, a successful software engineer who finds a lot of fulfillment volunteering at a homeless shelter. It really shows how giving back can enrich your own life.
It's about looking beyond ourselves and contributing to something bigger than our own personal success.
Precisely.
Now, the book also dives into empathy And
Right. And it argues that these qualities aren't just morally good, but that they actually contribute to success in relationships and even in your career.
so it's not just about being a good person. It can actually help you get ahead.
Exactly. And it gives this great example of Sarah, a manager who creates this really loyal and productive team by being empathetic and understanding her employees' needs.
So a little empathy goes a long way.
It really does.
And finally, the book delves into the topic of leadership.
Yeah, and it makes a case that true leadership isn't about barking orders. It's about inspiring others and working together towards a common goal.
And it highlights the need for balance in leadership, right? Incorporating both masculine and feminine qualities.
Exactly, like being assertive when you need to be, but also compassionate and empathetic.
Like that story about the CEO who really turned around his company culture by becoming more empathetic.
It's about leading with both your head and your heart.
All right, well, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. And I think the overall theme here is that you're in the driver's seat of your own life.
Absolutely. It's about taking ownership of your personal growth, your relationships, your career, your finance,
It's about making those conscious choices that align with your values and goals.
and ultimately being the best version of yourself, both for your own well-being and for the positive impact you could have on the world. One of the themes that keeps coming up is this idea of taking a proactive approach to life. Not just waiting for things to happen, but making them happen.
Being the master of your own destiny.
Exactly. And that's what these sources are all about, empowering you to become the architect of your own life. And it starts with setting those clear goals, having a vision for what you want, and then taking action to make it a reality.
And the book has some frameworks for that, right? Like for setting and achieving goals.
Yeah, one that stood out to me was the emphasis on making your goals SMART specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound.
Ed, have you found that helpful in your own life?
Absolutely. When you set these vague goals like be more successful, it's hard to know where to begin. But when you make them smart, you're creating a roadmap. Like instead of saying, I want to be healthier, you could say, I'm going to lose 10 pounds in the next 3 months by exercising 3 times a week and eating a balanced diet.
So it's about breaking it down into smaller, more manageable steps.
Right. And that's the power of setting SMART goals. It helps you clarify your vision, create a plan, and stay motivated. But it's not just about setting goals. It's about having the right mindset to achieve them.
And that's where the book's discussion of visualization comes in.
Yeah. The power of creating a mental image of yourself, achieving your goals, seeing it, feeling it, even before it happens.
But that's not just some new age thing, right? There's actually science behind it.
Exactly. Studies show that athletes who visualize themselves performing well, they actually do perform better in competition.
It's amazing how powerful our minds are.
It really is. And this book argues that we can harness that power through visualization, not just daydreaming, but using that mental image to fuel your motivation and guide your action.
So it's like planting a seed in your subconscious and watching it grow.
Precisely. And another powerful tool is positive affirmation. Those positive statements you repeat to yourself to reinforce a belief or an outcome.
So it's like giving yourself a pep talk every day.
Exactly. Replacing those negative self-talk patterns with positive ones.
One thing I've noticed in a lot of self-help stuff is this focus on always being positive. But this book seems to take a more balanced approach. It acknowledges that challenges and setbacks are part of life.
You're absolutely right. It emphasizes perseverance and resilience, especially when you're chasing those big goals.
So it's not about pretending everything is always perfect.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that life has ups and downs, and it's how you handle those downs that really defines you.
There's a quote from the book that I really like. It says, "The most successful people in the world have faced countless rejections, but they never let it stop them."
That's so true. Think about anyone you'd admire. They've all faced challenges, but they use those challenges as fuel to grow stronger.
It's not about avoiding failure. It's about learning from it.
And having a good support system can really help with that, surrounding yourself with people who believe in you.
It's funny, so much self-help stuff focuses on the individual, but this book seems to acknowledge the importance of community and connection.
Absolutely. We're not meant to go through life alone. We need those people we can rely on, the ones who offer support and guidance, and sometimes even a little tough love when we need it.
It's like having your own personal cheer squad, rooting for you every step of the way.
And sometimes a coach who can see your blind spots and push you to be better.
The book also mentions mentors, people who can share their wisdom and experience.
Mentors can be invaluable, especially when you're starting out. They can offer insights you might not have considered and help you avoid those common pitfalls.
It's like having a shortcut to success.
In a way, but remember, it's a two-way street. You've got to be proactive, build those relationships, show that you're eager to learn.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about time management.
Oh, yeah, time management. Everyone knows it's important, but it's so hard to master sometimes.
especially with all the distractions these days.
Exactly, which is why being intentional with your time is more important than ever.
The book compares time to money. You wouldn't throw your money away,
Oh.
so don't waste your time on things that don't matter.
That's a great analogy. We often think of time as unlimited, but it's not. It's precious, and we need to be mindful of how we use it.
The book had some good tips for managing time, like the Eisenhower matrix, where you prioritize tasks based on urgency and importance.
That's a great tool for focusing on what really matters. First things first.
And there's the Pomodoro technique, breaking work down into intervals, with short breaks to stay focused.
That's a good one for beating procrastination, and you'd be surprised how much those short breaks can actually boost your productivity.
It's like giving your brain a chance to recharge.
Exactly, and it all ties into that bigger message of balance, taking care of yourself both physically and mentally.
So it's not about burning yourself out, it's about finding a sustainable rhythm.
Right, a rhythm that allows you to achieve your goals and enjoy life at the same time. And that brings us back to online relationships and personal branding. We touched on this before.
Yeah, and I think it's worth exploring more, especially given how intertwined our online and offline lives have become.
Absolutely, and the book offers some great advice for navigating this digital world authentically and strategically.
Like creating a personal brand that reflects your values and skills, showcasing your expertise, and building a genuine network.
And it's not just about promoting yourself. It's about adding value to the online community, sharing your insights, connecting with people who share your interests.
It also warns against getting caught up in the comparison game, trying to be someone you're not, just for likes and followers.
Your worth isn't defined by those numbers. It's about the value you bring and the impact you make.
And there are tips for building healthy online relationships too, setting boundaries, communicating well, being mindful of the potential pitfalls.
Being intentional with your interactions, prioritizing quality over quantity.
Right, building real connections with people who share your values rather than just amassing a bunch of superficial ones.
And being aware of the potential dangers too. Things like cyberbullying and even addiction to social media.
So using online platforms to enhance your life, not to consume it.
Exactly. And prioritizing those face-to-face interactions whenever you can, because nothing beats genuine human connection.
So it's all about finding that balance between the online world and the real world.
Shifting gears a bit, your sources also talk about understanding female psychology and attraction, especially for men looking to improve their relationships with women.
That's a big topic.
It is, but the book dives into it in a way that's both insightful and respectful, drawing on evolutionary psychology and contemporary research to look at what influences female attraction.
Understanding the differences between men and women in terms of what they find attractive, how they communicate, how they approach relationships.
Exactly, and emphasizing the importance of clear communication, emotional intelligence, being able to create a sense of security and trust.
And avoiding those common traps that men often fall into.
Like being too aggressive, trying too hard to impress, neglecting your own needs.
So it's about being confident, but not arrogant.
Right. Finding that sweet spot between confidence and humility, assertiveness, and sensitivity.
Being your authentic self while also being mindful of the other person.
And the book also talks about self-worth, not seeking validation from external sources, especially from women.
So working on yourself first, building that confidence from within.
Exactly. Being the best version of yourself for your own sake and for the sake of your relationship.
It mentions physical health and fitness too.
Oh yeah, not just for looks, but for confidence, energy levels, overall well-being.
So exercise, diet, sleep, all that good stuff.
It all contributes to optimal hormone levels, including testosterone, which is important for men's vitality.
And the book offers tips for incorporating those healthy habits, even with a busy schedule.
Small, sustainable changes over time. That's the key.
Now, your sources also touch on this idea of woke culture and progressive ideologies and how they can be challenging to navigate, especially for men.
We want to be clear that we're not endorsing or condemning any particular viewpoints here, but we do want to help you understand the ideas presented in your sources.
So it's about being aware of how these ideologies can impact you and being able to think critically about them.
Exactly. The book encourages men to be aware of how these ideologies can sometimes be harmful, leading to censorship, suppression of different viewpoints, even the erosion of traditional masculine values.
So it's about thinking for yourself, questioning the narratives you're being told, and standing up for your beliefs, even when they're not popular.
Having the courage to speak your truth, even when it's hard.
And the book also reminds us to find the humor in it all. Sometimes the best way to deal with nonsense is to laugh at it.
It's about not letting the negativity drag you down, maintaining perspective.
Speaking of perspective, let's talk about failure and how to view it as a learning opportunity.
We all experience setbacks, it's inevitable, but the book argues that it's not about avoiding failure, but learning to reframe it as a step towards success.
And it gives some great examples of successful people who failed a lot before they made it big.
Like Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Winston Churchill, they all faced huge obstacles, but they didn't give up.
So it's about learning from your mistakes and coming back stronger.
The book has some tips for reframing failure, analyzing your mistakes, identifying the lessons, applying them to the future.
It's all about having that growth mindset.
Believing that you can improve, that you can learn from your experience.
Okay, now let's dive into loyalty, honor, and commitment. Those are big ones.
They are, and they're often overlooked these days. But the book argues they're crucial for strong relationships and personal growth.
It talks about choosing honor over convenience, sticking to your principles, even when it's tough.
Living with integrity, being someone people can trust and depend on.
Being there for the people you care about no matter what.
Exactly. That's what loyalty is all about, having each other's backs.
Now let's switch gears again and talk about humor and emotional resilience, how they can help you deal with life's challenges.
The book makes a strong case for humor as a coping mechanism, a way to lighten things up, to connect with others.
Not taking yourself too seriously, finding the funny side of things.
Especially with all the craziness in the world today.
The book even talks about using humor to deal with woke culture, not letting it get to you.
Finding that balance between seriousness and lightheartedness, because life is full of both.
And then there's emotional resilience, being able to bounce back from those tough times.
It's about being able to cope with stress, to maintain a positive outlook, even when things are difficult.
The book has some good tips for building resilience, things like mindfulness and gratitude.
It's about recognizing that life is full of challenges and learning how to handle them gracefully and with strength.
The sources also talk about faith and charity.
Yeah, they highlight how faith can provide a sense of purpose and meaning, especially during tough times.
And how giving back to others, doing something for someone else, can bring a lot of joy and fulfillment.
There are some really inspiring stories in the book about people finding happiness through their faith and their charitable work.
So it's about looking beyond yourself, connecting with something bigger, whether it's a spiritual belief or a cause you're passionate about.
Right, recognizing that there's more to life than just money and success.
Now, the sources also talk about empathy and altruism, and how they can actually lead to more success in relationships and your career.
There's that great example of Sarah, the manager who built a really strong team by being empathetic and understanding her employees' needs.
So being a good person isn't just the right thing to do, it can also help you succeed.
Exactly. A little empathy goes a long way.
And finally, let's talk about leadership, especially for men.
The book argues that true leadership isn't about being bossy. It's about inspiring others and working together towards a common goal.
Leading by example, setting a positive tone.
And finding that balance between masculine and feminine qualities in leadership.
So being assertive, but also compassionate.
Like that CEO who improved his company culture by being more empathetic.
It's about leading with both your head and your heart.
Now let's touch on relationship models. That the sources talk about monogamy, polyamory, open relationships, all sorts of different ways to do relationships.
And they emphasize that there's no right or wrong answer. It's about finding what works for you and your partner.
Having honest conversations about your needs and expectations, no matter what kind of relationship you choose.
Building something that works for both of you based on respect and trust.
And not letting society pressure you into something that doesn't feel right.
Now, let's talk about rational thinking and logic, especially in today's world.
The book challenges those progressive ideologies and cultural Marxism, encouraging you to think critically and question the narratives you're being fed.
So doing your own research, not just blindly accepting what you're told.
Exactly. The book highlights how these ideologies can be harmful, leading to things like censorship and the erosion of individual freedoms.
So it's about having the courage to stand up for what you believe in, even when it's unpopular.
And being aware of those manipulation tactics, the emotional appeals, the guilt trips, the appeals to authority.
Thinking for yourself, not letting others control your mind.
Now let's bring it back to personal development. That's really the core of all this.
The book is full of advice for becoming the best version of yourself.
Setting goals, managing your time, developing your skills, building relationships, taking care of yourself.
Embracing your masculinity, being confident but also compassionate.
Finding that balance between strength and sensitivity, logic, and emotion.
Personal development is a journey, not a destiny.
It's about always striving to learn and grow, embracing those challenges as opportunities.
And having a positive mindset, believing in yourself, never giving up.
You have the power to create the life you want. It all starts with taking that first step.
And finding your purpose, something that gives you meaning beyond just money and success.
Finding something you're passionate about, something you believe in, something that makes a difference in the world.
Yeah, it's about defining success on your own terms, not letting society tell you what it should look like.
Exact. Creating a life that feels authentic to you.
Going through all these sources with you has been really insightful. There's so much here, it's almost overwhelming. But you've done a great job breaking it all down and making it relevant for our listeners.
Well, thank you. I think it's awesome how curious you are. These sources cover such a wide range of topics.
Well, I want to make sure we're covering all the bases, personal development, relationships, finances, career, even spirituality.
And it all comes back to this desire to understand yourself better, to build a life that reflects your value, to make a positive impact.
It's about that big picture, seeing how everything's connected.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one piece of advice you would give to our listeners?
Take action. Knowledge is great, but it's only useful if you actually apply it.
Like a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Exactly. So what's that one step you can take today? What's something you heard in this deep dive that inspired you?
Maybe it's setting a smart goal, trying out a positive affirmation, or reaching out to a mentor.
Or just taking a few minutes to think about your values and how you can live more in alignment with them.
Whatever it is, just start. Take that first step and keep moving forward.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone. There are resources out there, communities, even books like the one we talked about today. They can all offer guidance and support.
That book, if our listeners want to learn more, it sounds like it's packed with insight.
It really is. Tons of practical advice, personal stories, strategies for growth and success.
You can find it on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books. Happy reading.